Bonjour everyone, Pantouf here today for a new video in which we are going to try to talk a little bit about the matchmaking and especially tier 7 matchmaking. For the OGs of the channel, you already know that I talked about the matchmaking in a video called The Matchmaking Problem that I did 6, maybe 8 months ago, something like that, can't really remember the date. And I told you what I thought about the matchmaking, the fact that there was way too much premium tanks, way too much broken tanks, etc, etc. But today I really want to be more specific and talk about one tier only, which is tier 7. In my opinion, if we compare tier to tier, tier 7 is the worst mess ever. It really feels like the tier 7 is where Wargaming is trying to experiment things, like they put some broken tanks without even testing them and they see if it works or not, and if it works. And the problem is, the more they do that, the less enjoyable tier 7 becomes. And tier 7 was, back in the days at least, an entity. It was really something you loved playing tier 7, because tier 7 is right after tier 1 from tier 6, which are mostly composed of noobs that don't really know what they're doing. After you have tier 8 from tier 10, which is more for experienced player, or at least people that really want to farm. That's where you're gonna find extremely good players from all the clans you have in Twister Cup right now, or Loka, EG, C4, can't remember the names of the others, sorry, no offense. And tier 7 is the line. It's where you draw the line between the bots, which are playing from tier 1 and tier 6, or bad player if you prefer, but... and the really good players that are in tier 8, tier 10. And that's what makes it really enjoyable, because tier 7 is the only tier where you have 50% chances of completely getting wrecked, or 50% chances of completely wrecking the other team. And the fact is, it's dying mostly because of those new tanks. For example, the more relevant example is the Annihilator that you can see on screen right now. And the problem is, Wargaming is not really doing anything to help. First, let me try to explain to you why I think tier 7 is completely broken, or a mess, call it whatever you want. For me, the biggest problem is the Blitz Nation. As you all know, Blitz Nation is a nation in Blitz invented by the developers that literally justifies that they can put imaginary tanks in the game. But the problem is that most of the things that are coming out of the imaginations of developers, if it's not based on a real model or something coming from World of Tank, usually it gets pretty broken. Look at that. Dracula, Helsing, Smasher, Annihilator. We have so many tanks that are completely broken at tier 7 that it starts to get ridiculous. For example, here we're gonna play with a Spic after, and you're gonna see in front of us we have a platoon of Smasher. What am I supposed to do against a platoon of Smasher? Like, I mean, even I, as a good player, sometimes it's really a struggle to play at tier 7 if you don't play those premium tanks. Tier to tier compared, if we take the coefficient, if we did a coefficient between the number of regular tanks and the number of broken tanks per tier, you will see that the tier that gathers the most broken tanks is tier 7. And the problem is, when you have such a high rate of broken tanks, when you try to climb, I mean, if I put myself as a new player, if I try to grind regularly with those Tech 3 tanks, it's either I'm gonna be top tier at tier 7 and I'm gonna face premium tier 7 that are completely broken with my average statistically talking, I don't know, maybe KV3, let's say I'm playing with a KV3. If I'm in a KV3, I don't really know the game because I'm a new player, and in front of me I only have Smasher or Annihilator platoon, I'm gonna get disgusted about the game, because I'm gonna tell myself, why is my tank so bad? So is it a pay-to-win game? And yes, it's becoming, I mean, it always has been a pay-to-win game. Let's not blind ourselves. I mean, if it was not a pay-to-win game, we wouldn't have Smasher, we wouldn't have Annihilator, and etc. All those broken tanks. But even if I don't really mind broken tanks, I mind broken tanks when there are too many of them. Of course, Wargaming is still trying to reduce the number of them by artificially nerfing them by buffing the tech trees, but the problem is that for Wargaming to take actions like this, it usually takes more than 1 year. And as a new player, I wouldn't wait 1 year for Wargaming to act to modify tier 7. I would be bored pretty soon. And that's a huge problem because I don't really know about statistics. I think the game is going well at the moment, or at least it seems like it's the case, because the economic of the game seems to be quite balanced for the moment. But maybe in the future we are gonna fall like World of Tanks PC, because that's exactly the problem we had in World of Tanks PC. There are way too many premiums that are completely broken, so people start leaving the game. Of course, World of Tanks Blitz is learning from World of Tanks PC because they didn't do the same mistakes. Usually when they put new tanks in the game, they are more balanced than they are in World of Tanks PC, and that's good to see that the developers are taking care about not repeating their mistakes. But imaginary tanks at tier 7 that are completely broken and sorted out from Wargaming's magic hat like that, that's... I don't know, you can have your opinion, but I think that's bullshit, let's be honest. Now, of course, we need to be objective, and if we take a look at World of Tanks Blitz statistics, you will see that those tanks that everybody's frightened about and say they are broken are not, statistically talking once more, tanks that pose a problem in the game. If you take a look, and I remember Rebel Stripe saying that in stream, if you take a look at the Smasher, the tank is not outperforming Tech Tree tanks. But the problem is, where is the limit? Okay, we have World of Tanks Blitz statistics, but if you take a look at Annihilator statistics in World of Tanks, in Blitzstar, sorry, not World of Tanks, but in Blitzstar, you will see that the Annihilator, out of all the tier 7 ever implemented in the game, is the tank that has the best win rate, the best damage per game. And when you see that, you understand clearly that the tank is broken. I always said that I never thought the Annihilator was broken, and I still think that it's not broken. But the problem is, Wargaming is giving access way too easily to those tanks, which is a good thing, don't mind me. But they literally destroyed tier 7 when they decided to jump on the Halloween occasion to release the Annihilator. The problem is, and I think that's how they saw it, they told themselves, okay, you know what, we are gonna put the tank in Battle Pass, which is cheaper than what we usually do to get the Annihilator, because it was only 10 bucks to actually be able to get it. I know in some countries it's a lot, but at least in France it's literally 2 beers. And a lot of people took the occasion. There was a lot of giveaways, of Battle Pass giveaways of Halloween, etc. And it resulted in a lot of people getting the Annihilator. Nowadays, if you go into a tier 7 match, there is 1 chance out of 2 that there are at least 2 Annihilators in your game. And that's way too much, because those tanks are, yes, really funny for the guys that are playing them, or fun. They are fun for the guys that are playing them. But trust me, when you are facing it, it becomes quite hard as a new player, because of course if you're a really good player, it will not affect your stats, or at least that's what I think, because it didn't happen to me. At tier 7 I still do good, you know. But for a new player, having to deal with that much amount of broken tanks at tier 7 can disgust them of the game. And that's something we don't want to happen. So of course, there are some things we could do to reduce the number of tanks such as Annihilator and Smasher in the battlefield. There are solutions. I'm gonna give some example right now so you understand what I mean. First, we need to talk about the solutions that wouldn't work. The first one and main is probably to reduce the number of platoons those tanks can get in. For example, if you're playing with the Smasher, you wouldn't be able to platoon with another Smasher or another Annihilator. This solution is literally impossible because, let's be honest, when we platoon with someone, all we do is playing broken tanks. That's part of the game, that's what makes it fun, and if you just cut off that fun part of the game, you are gonna lose a lot of your player base. So it's not an option. The second thing would be to actually nerf those tanks. It's also impossible because those tanks have the premium status, or at least the Annihilator has the premium status, and the problem is that with the premium status, Wargaming doesn't allow themselves to actually nerf those tanks. They allow themselves to do it on, for example, collectible tanks and tech tree tanks, but not on premiums. And just imagine, you paid for a tank just for Wargaming to nerf it after? No, it's impossible. You would lose a lot of your player base as well. Now, the only solution, viable solution right now would be to actually increase the abilities of all tech tree tanks. And trust me, that's what Wargaming is doing right now with the 7.4 update, for example. If you take a look at what tanks got a buff, you will see that it's mostly all tech tree. Of course, there are some premiums, but they were underpowered premiums, so now they're just shining again. But I think that's what Wargaming wants to do, and that's why they are releasing a lot of premium tanks. Let me explain to you real quick how economic works, or at least in this game. If you want to sell something, you have to make it interesting for the players. What is interesting for a player? A tank that outperforms every single others of the same tier. That's why Wargaming is releasing Smasher, Annihilator, etc. because they are trying to get money. Once they have the money, and once you paid for that tank that you overused again and again and again, and they are literally feeling the matchmaking, you have to update the older tanks from the tech tree, even some other premiums that are in the game for a very long time. You update them in order to make them a little bit more performing against those broken tanks you sold before. And doing that, it increases, it's like balances the matchmaking once again, and when you are again on the same level for both collectible premiums and tech tree, you start selling once again even more broken tanks to make money, and after you calibrate, and it's just a step game like that which will never stop. That's how Wargaming is making money. The problem is, what is the limit? When are we gonna get to the point where it becomes impossible to buff those tech tree tanks to the point that they become competitive with the new premiums currently implemented in the game? And the problem is, how can we tell ourselves that it's not impacting the game enough for those tanks to be nerfed when you just check your statistics with those tanks, you are going to see that you completely outperform your statistics with your tech tree tanks. I know that I'm doing way better with my Annihilator with nearly 3000 damage per game than I am, for example, with a KV3 where I only have maybe 2000. And that's a huge problem, because it really shows you that you are doing better with these tanks. And if you are doing better with these tanks, it's not necessarily due to skill, it's mostly based on the fact that those tanks are made broken for you to spend your money. I understand Wargaming being a company, but try to be a sane company. Try selling ourselves maybe premiums that are overall a little bit better. Why not? If you want just a little bit better than the tech tree tanks, but don't make it like there is an ocean between a KV2 and a Smasher, because at one point people will get bored because not everybody can allow themselves to spend tons of bucks on your game. This video is now over. Feel free to tell me what you think about my little expose in the comments. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Feel also free to subscribe, like and share, and I'm gonna see you soon, probably in stream tonight at 9 PM. See ya, guys.